So in South Dakota, it sounds like habitat, winters, tag numbers. Do you have any disease issues or other things that hit your populations in South Dakota?
Um, I know that on occasion, it's not a widespread problem, but I know on occasion, like they're finding dead pronghorn just laying here or there. Not a bunch, like one just randomly. I know my daughter Claire on the last year that they were doing the mentored youth hunting, which we no longer have that for antelope. Um, it, I thought she'd shot it, her pronghorn. It ran over a hill. We down over the hill. I get there, and here's this pronghorn doe laying there, and I'm like, kind of, how is that thing bloated? You just shot it like a minute ago.
Yeah.
And then I
Yeah.
look over about another 50 yards, and here's the one she shot, and this one was just laying there. So I don't
Yeah.
know. Uh, I have my own theories that I don't like.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you my theory, and I'm going to be
Okay.
wrong because some biologist is going to watch this and go, "That guy's on crack cocaine."
Yeah. There
But
you
here's
go.
my thought. So part of natural or tillage is like deep tillage in the soil, right? And it
Hmm.
works stuff up. Well, when we get really dry spells, and those great big cracks in the soil is almost a form of tillage of aeration of the soil. But then water gets down, is able to go down further in the soil profile than what it ever did before. Hence, it might get to some things that got leached out of the upper soil that wasn't really healthy for wildlife.
Mm.
And sometimes I feel like that is an uptake in some of the plants that they're eating, and it could become toxic if they eat too much of it. I have read a couple of studies. There's one weed out there that specifically, and I can't remember the name of it. I should have researched it more before I came on, but like I could definitely see that, especially when we go through these high heavy drought periods.
Hmm.
It's not widespread. It's not really anthrax. It's just something that just affects different wildlife in different ways.
Hmm.
Um, but um, we haven't seen a lot of that. The chronic wasting disease, EHD,
Yeah.
any of those things. We just don't. And our game and fish department is amazing at when a landowner calls and says, "I've got this." They send somebody up there right away. Where we got to send it to is all the way to the east side of the state, to South Dakota State University, which is way up in Brookings.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, like there's a lot of time and money that goes into that of looking at these things. And usually, when they get them, they're unable to find the actual root cause of the death.
Hmm. So in Montana, we've had some cases of EHD, blue tongue, some call it.
Yep.
I'm looking at the Pronghorn Bible here, uh, Pronghorn Ecology and Management. There is a chapter on diseases,
Yeah.
diseases and parasites, uh, and it's a pretty thin chapter compared to everything else. Uh, so I'm assuming it didn't deserve a huge amount of coverage.
Right.
Uh,
100%.
yeah, it's only this book is 600 pages or something. You get to diseases and it's 30 pages, 35 pages. You get to predation. Holy smokes. Predation is pretty large. And then it's mortality factors, which is really a large chapter.
Yep.
Uh, because they're not a cervid, at least for the time being, chronic wasting disease is not leaped across from cervids to other uh, species that
Yep.
we know of. So it's not an issue there. I'd say in Montana and Wyoming, they talk heavily. If you talk to any of the biologists, they're going to say it's habitat and weather uh, are our biggest issues. Habitat meaning not just the quality of the habitat of a drought cycle or a high moisture cycle, but
Yep.
also interference with how they can use that habitat. We've all read the studies from the Wyoming Migration Initiative about uh, how pronghorn evolved as a migratory species, and we may really not notice it because we may be like, "Ah, I just moved 12 miles." Well, if they can't move those 12 miles, but 10 miles over there is it blows clear, it gets less snow, that's probably where they're wintering. And if they can't get there and they get stacked up against fences, they're
Yeah.
going to starve.
Yep.
And so that all of that's a component of the habitat side of it. And it's it, uh, it's probably the for me, it's the one I focus on the most. A lot of people want to say predation, predation, predation. Well, there's a ton of studies out there about predation with deer, predation, mostly coyotes with deer, coyotes with pronghorn, and the amount of effort you have to put towards predation, coyote control
Yeah.
is intense. The timing of it has to be well timed relative to when the fawning happens, which
May
I saw.
1st.
Yeah, I saw twin fawns when I was out walleye fishing last weekend on our way back. It was really cool to see two little fawns and one doe standing there. I'm thinking, I wonder if I need to stand guard here and make sure no coyotes get here until these little guys are big enough to run away.
Yeah.
Uh, so the timing of when you have to apply heavy predation pressure or predator pressure against predators, none of that's simple and easy, and nothing solves the consequences of predation, which is a natural part of every population cycle. Nothing helps that more than high quality habitat.
Right.
Every study you read, every person you talk to, that lower quality habitat predation is way more amplified.
Right.
Higher quality habitat, the effects of predation are far that it's suppressed.
Right.
So if that's the case, and we know that the cost of predation is a continual ongoing thing or managing predators, I always end up leaning over here towards habitat.
Right.
And I know some people are going to send us emails and say, Newberg, you don't know what you're talking about. I saw 12 coyotes out in the field last night. I get that. Shoot some of them.
Well, so if you look at there's a few studies. I can't remember if Montana State did one of them, and it's been a while. But they the study stated that coyotes are responsible for 70% of the fawn mortality.
Right.
But now, where we go into with what you're saying is, and you're 100% right. We're bird hunters, right? Like you've hunted birds, I've hunted birds upland.
Yep.
If I'm out in the middle of barren nowhere and I see a tuft of grass,
Yeah. That's where I'm
and
going.
we're going to walk over there, and there might be some sharpies in there. There might be there's going to be grouse or pheasant in there.
Yep.
If you're a coyote who's actually a 4 times the hunter that you and I ever will be,
Yep.
he already knows it as well. And it's not only coyotes, it's raptors. Um, if you were to take a drone and probably fly it around, and if you have low habitat and that doe doesn't have a place to drop those fawns, that's easy pickings for them as well. It's just if someone can prove me wrong, an antelope doesn't live in a 1 square mile and it just circles around there for its lifespan, right? Montana
No.
State collared a doe up in Harding County, which is in South Dakota, and that's the farthest northwest county in the state of South Dakota. Actually, it's probably the most prime antelope county that we have. Don't apply there. You're not gonna get it. So, but that doe eventually ended up in a year's time down in Wall, South Dakota, which is hundreds of miles
Right.
from where it's at. And what I would love to do, Randy, is I would love to get that data from the gal who did that study. And I know like our Game and Fish has it, but I really kind of want to deal with someone who was studying this data all the time. And I'd like, if you could have the money to take a drone and fly that entire route and see how that pronghorn zigzag, she went back and forth around woven wire fences and found openings, and then also tie that with the weather patterns per each day as that route was being taken, would be so much information that would be usable to actually convince people finally that like overgrazing or all this woven wire has so much implication, because um, it's even worse for an antelope when it ends up in a new area, because it doesn't know where everything is at. It's like, oh, I didn't know there was woven wire there. I guess that's where we're going to go and pile up this winter and be dead. Or I'm getting chased by a coyote or a hunter and I can't get out. And I'm just stuck in here. I'm like in a pen. So that's like some of that aspect. Cause I do agree. when you take the coyotes, like you said, the timing, you could shoot a pair of coyotes, a male and a female, and like, well, took care of them and probably whatever's back of the den, which, however, whatever. The thing is a coyote with no pups will come over and take over that den and raise those pups.
Yeah.
So they're so smart that I don't ever think not in my lifetime, unless we went back to the unpopular, and I understand why, but poisoning coyotes. That's
Right.
that's really when the coyote population definitely took off. Low fur prices, they don't help us out. Um,
Right.
so that's where our organization, North American Pronghorn Foundation, Arizona Antelope Foundation, that's where we all kind of get tied back into this. Got to go after habitat,
Yep.
because I'm not saying that's low hanging fruit, but it's something that we can get involved in.
Yeah. And it's in the long run will provide the best returns for pronghorn. And
Yep.
I want to make sure that nobody thinks that Rob was advocating that we go back to poisoning coyotes. Okay. That's not what he was saying. He was using it as a point of reference as to when coyote numbers were at their all time low in this country. Did I make a clear enough disclaimer on that, Rob?
Yeah. I mean, I'm like, I
Yeah.
know Aunt Betsy should have kept her dog at home and not let it go run wild across the countryside. But no, and it
Yeah.
is hard because a lot of raptors, bobcats, a
Mhm.
lot
Oh,
of
yeah.
critters you did not want to intentionally get,
Yeah.
they fell victim to that. And so I
Yeah.
understand why we got away from that
Right.
practice, but it's kind of where that launching pad started at.
Right. So then we get into this really, uh, and this is again, this is me trying to paraphrase or filter, whatever term you want to call it, all these studies. So there are studies about how habitat predation and mortality from habitat are all combined in how there's some mix there. And the better the quality of your herd age class, the greater the likelihood that the conception dates are going to be in a narrow window of 10 days to 2 weeks.
Right.
So then you take this gestation period. That means you're probably going to have a very narrow window of, what do they call it? Parpuration? Birthing. Let's call it that.
Yeah.
Fawns being born.
Fawning.
Yeah. And so you own a coyote can only eat so many fawns in 10 days.
Yeah.
Whereas if you string that out for 30 days, because you really don't have a good age class, so the conception dates are spread out equally over 30 days. Now you have coyotes picking off these fawns for 30 days instead of 10 days. And so it triples the amount of fawn predation just because of the quality of your herd, for lack of a better term of
Yeah.
putting it there. And so there's all these things. And then if you have really good fawning habitat, which is going to be a little bit higher cover, going to have fewer fences, going to all kinds of things. The fawn or the doe doesn't have to go as far to get food and come back and lactate. There's all these things that highest quality habitat results in less predation of fawns also.
Yep.
So all these things keep coming back to this one thing called habitat. And you spoke to one of them right there, and that's woven fence. Anyone who doesn't know what Rob was referring to when they say woven fence, those of us who live out west, we say, oh, that's a woven fence, or a lot of people call them sheep fences, because on the bottom two strands from, say, I don't know, 30 inches down, it's, what is it, a 4x4 or 6x6 inch?
It's both. It can be
Yeah,
both.
yeah, mesh. And so a pronghorn can't fit through a 4x4 or 6x6 inch hole. So they don't, they didn't evolve jumping over fences. Well, they didn't evolve with fences, but they're not jumpers. They prefer to crawl under. And if ever you see a low spot along a fence line and a big path underneath it, that's probably where the pronghorn are crossing, and they cross single file. So better habitat, and speaking to the one board member you have who's improving their fences, you take the bottom two wires or the bottom half of the fence and you make sure that it is not woven fence.
Right.
or sheep fence, whatever you want to call it. And when you replace it, maybe you can put the middle wire, the second from the bottom, as barbed. But if you can make that bottom wire a smooth wire and just move it up 1 or 2 extra inches.
18 inches off the ground.
Right, right.
Yep.
But some of them are down like 12, 14 inches.
Oh yeah.
And if you can move it up a little bit, 18 inches is the 18 to 20 is recommended. Uh, you do marvelous things for the cause of pronghorn and their ability to escape predation.
Yep. Yeah, and that's so the state of South Dakota has done a remarkable job. I don't get into I don't care about all the politics or where the money comes from. It's kind of irrelevant. But there are some programs right out there right now that a lot of ranchers, especially in South Dakota, are taking advantage of. The state will reimburse you if you remove 5-strand or woven wire and replace it with what you just talked about, 3 strands of barbed wire, and that bottom strand has to be smooth wire. If you replace with that, it's somewhere between 70 and 90 cents a foot. Well, you can pencil it out if you take it out yourself
Right.
and put it back in yourself. But if for us, what we're doing is we're offering for landowners, we'll go out and we'll remove it.
Yeah.
That way they can replace it, whether they have a fencing crew or they do it themselves. They can pencil the project out and it makes it work. We've kind of become a tool for game and fish as a selling point of saying like, hey, I know you're on the fence. Maybe you don't want to do this. Maybe it's not a good idea. And maybe get a hold of these guys and see what you can work out with them. And they'll come out and they'll remove this fencing for you.
Yeah.
And so, sure, there are people that could afford to have someone remove it. I mean, pay them and then replace it. Absolutely. And maybe they would take advantage of us offering to come out and do those services. We don't care. Woven wire out is a good thing. 5-strand wire out is a good thing. The less of that that's out there, any place where you look, I can't say the same about Wyoming or Montana, but I can say in South Dakota, where you see a lot of the woven wire, it's probably a lot less sagebrush in that pasture.
Mm-hmm.
That's just not even like there's just not a lot of good food source there because it was overgrazed by sheep production at one point. So we're just making an incredible opportunity here for, again, pronghorn to move from point A to point B, escape predation. I have a picture that I don't know if I ever sent it to you. It was a pronghorn fawn that I found last fall. That's a half-mile from where we just did a fencing project 2 weekends ago. That that pronghorn was the fawn. It was dead. It was hung up it had tried to get through one of the squares of the woven wire, got hung up. And then there was a doe about 100 yards out with another fawn. I'm sure she'd had twins and one of them got hung up in there. So it's just not for them. I mean, it's for any wildlife, young mule deer, those yearling mule deer, when they're trying to jump over a 5-strand barbed wire, it's a lot.
Yeah.
I have personally seen a pronghorn that had been shot, had went under barbed wire fence, and it had this huge gouge all the way down the center of its back. So when it's hot, you always see a big tuft of hair fly out because of the hollow hair when they go through that fence. But when it's hot out and there's flies, the risk of infection are pretty high. And especially if you're going into breeding season and you're going to be carrying a fawn, that's not a healthy way to go. So, and I even at this point, and you'll probably get an email on this, I don't know what kind of livestock people are raising nowadays that you got to have 5-strand. I mean, are you raising rodeo bulls? I don't longhorns. I don't know what's going on, but it's like our board member with all the woven or with the smooth wire that he's been installing, and he's just like, he goes, ain't nothing getting out. Like, it's just like it was before. Like, cattle respect it. They understand. I don't know. It seems there's a lot of conversation going on as far as like the invisible fencing for dogs of going to that with livestock. We'll see how that goes. I don't know. Like your neighbors would have to have it too.